Hello. This is Yuri with Let's Talk Moving Podcast and Moving Sales Professionals. Today, we're going to do a slightly different format than we normally do. I have two gentlemen here with me today. I have Tom and Christian with Continental Moving in Boston that just launched in April. So, this is going to be a different format. This is going to be more of a question answer session, and this is going to be more on focus on sales specifically and any industry related questions that I can answer for the guys. So for some of you companies out there that are new to the industry, or maybe you just need a little bit of hands up of sales, I'm hoping that this session is going to provide some useful information for you as far as sales goes and as far as how we can help you here in general so you can hear from the source. Once again, my name is Yuri. I'm the owner of Moving Sales Professionals. We're a call center for moving companies based in Maryland, based in the United States. We've been in business since 2018. I've been doing sales since I was 17. I'm 41, so over 2 decades in sales and over 2 decades at this point of sales, specifically for moving since 2003. So doing this for a long time, been in different positions, have been on a truck, have been in the office, have been there sending the crews out at 5 in the morning. So pretty much have been in any one of those positions. So not just specifically office, actually physically been on the job, had to pack a customer, had to deal with the customer in person, not just over the phone. So just in general, lots of things that we can talk about here. So I'm ready when you are, guys. Fire away.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Yuri, for
Sure, no
having us.
problem.
Obviously, it's better to find the answers being a fairly new company on the market. So, probably, as everyone is questioning, is leads where everyone can get leads. Maybe like the first question would be, what do you think about like moving brokers? Is that something that a lot of companies go to, or how does that go?
So as far as moving brokers go, brokers, of course, in the industry as a whole have a lot of bad stigma associated with them. Part of the reason being is because, frankly, their job is to book a job and then they sell it to you, to somebody else, whatever the case may be. And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more. So, from a standpoint of a broker, first of all, their appetites over the years have certainly increased. Earlier in the years, they were taking somewhere between 20 and 30% in terms of deposit. And of course, for brokers, they take that deposit, that's their money, right? So
Got it.
nowadays, I've heard of some companies telling me of some of the brokers charging as much as 50% upfront, which means that really leaves you half of potential money that you can get from the job. So the other problem is that with brokers, because in most cases, they're not going to be the ones that are going to really work with the client later, or they're going to help you guys
Yeah.
on the job when you get there if the job is a lot bigger. Some will. So I'm not going to say that every broker is like that, but industry as a whole, the issue is once again, their job is to book it, which means that if they lowball it and you guys get there, you still have to deal with that issue. So that's one problem,
Got it.
right? Problem number two is so broke, and it's a problem and not a problem at the same time. It depends on how you look at it. But brokers have a huge budget as it comes to advertising, at least the ones that I've personally talked to. One specific broker, I'm not going to name any names, but they have $100,000 budget weekly that they spend on advertising, right? So most moving companies starting out or otherwise, it takes a while before they have that kind of cash to spend on advertising, right? What does that do? A lot of companies that end up going for brokers, they just strictly rely on getting jobs on brokers and they're not worried ahead of time about building their own space and building their own reputation online that would be separate, right? So what happens right now today, I have a lot of companies that reach out to me that have been working with brokers for a long time. There's one company in specific, for example, that I'm talking to right now. They have, because they've been working with brokers, it's a pretty big company. They have roughly about somewhere in a 10 to 20 truck range that they use for pickups, so regular box trucks. And they have about 20 trucks, trailers, 18 wheelers that are going out to deliver these jobs, right? However, here's like on surface, that sounds great, right? But reality is this: they've been working with brokers for all this time. So what they have basically, if you look that company up specifically online, they have like two reviews on Google. Right now, they want to separate themselves from brokers. They want to do their own thing, right? And the problem is this: if this is what you want to do, and your main focus is long distance, you need to have a much smoother separation for yourself. What that means is that as you're doing these jobs with brokers, anytime, frankly, that you're going down and you're doing a job for somebody and the job goes smoothly, it's not one of those situations where cops are involved. And it's not one of those situations where it's a huge job with like enormous, like the cost goes up double, triple, whatever, right? Because it's much bigger than you were originally told, and it's much bigger than the customer was originally told what the price was going to be, and you're having all sorts of issues. So anytime you're having a good experience with a customer and a customer is having a good experience with you, you want them to leave a review specifically for your company online.
Hi everyone, this is Jasdeep.
Hi, this is Herleen. We are the proud owners of the Calgary franchise of Let's Get Moving.
The main part of the business, which is sales, marketing, and advertising, he was gonna be the one controlling everything on the back end, and all we had to do was take care of the jobs that the sales team was booking for our location.
They'll give you a proper training. Then they have a nice franchisee team. You can call them, you can send them an email, or you can text them. They'll be there to help you.
You definitely need a really good team,
right,
in order for this business to succeed, and we were definitely blessed with amazing operation members, amazing movers, and pretty much even from day one, like we had an amazing team.
Visit letsgetmovingusa.com, changing the moving world one move at a time.
So as you're doing this, as you're doing with brokers, you want to make sure that your own visibility is increasing, 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 increasing. Why? Because eventually you're going to want to do your own jobs. Eventually, you want to not want to work with brokers because of all the issues that come with that. And of course, they take a pretty big cut off the top.
Got it. Yeah,
So
that makes
you
sense.
want to get to a point where whenever you decide that you want to separate from them, no matter how soon or how late that may happen, you want to make sure that you have a very positive situation online, because if you don't, this is what's going to happen. So this company comes to me and they say, okay, we want to continue doing long distance. I look, I find nothing, right? So here's the difference between local moves and long distance. Local moves, the basic conversation is this: the customer doesn't necessarily need you to have a absolutely amazing profile online as far as local goes. Yeah, you want to have it anyway, right? Because that way, that's how
Yeah,
you get bigger jobs, more paying jobs, right? But ultimately, as far as local jobs go, bottom line is this: people look at the price, you people listen to to who's talking to them on the phone. If they will feel comfortable, they will say yes to you, and then they're following your truck in their car. If there's an issue, they pick up the phone, they call the cops, right? That's the
yeah.
rationale, right? Long distance, they're putting their entire life in your truck. So if they don't know anything about you, if they can't find anything about you, if there aren't any good reviews, if there's nothing to find, they're not going to book the job because it's their whole entire life. And
Got
they
it.
may not, and if it's a long distance move that's going from Boston to California, they're not going to see their stuff for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes
And they
longer,
don't
maybe
know.
if it's
Yeah.
going into storage. So they need to be able to trust you. So if they can't find anything about you, they're not going to trust you, no matter how much you charge them.
Now, that goes into one of the following questions, like how do you estimate long distance moves like properly? Like from your perspective, being like a sales professional, when someone, is it by cubic feet? Is it by
So there's different things that you can do. You can do volume. which right now is a big chunk of, I don't know if it's more than half of the industry that's doing that type. Van lines are not doing it this way. But local movers, there's quite a few that do things based on volume, right? There's
Yeah.
also based on weight, and then there's also flat rate, right? So those are the three ways to quote long distance, right? So my personal opinion, I mean, I can quote it either way. I can quote it pounds, I can quote it cubic feet, I can quote it flat, right? But to me, I've always been more of a fan of pounds, to be honest with you, because to me, pounds is something that's easier to verify. And you can tell the customer, ultimately, I'm not the one that's determining your price. The weight station is. So you
So
can
we,
come with us to the scales. We weigh the truck empty in front of you. Then we load your stuff. Then we go back to the weigh station. We weigh it again. The difference between the two weight tickets is the actual weight of your shipment, and that's what you're paying based on.
where do we weight it?
Truck stops, anywhere that there's a scale.
With
You're driving
customers?
on the road. You're passing these weight stations all the time.
But you said like you go with customers. So how
The
can I
customer
get?
can come with you. It like there's a lot of them. There's a whole network of scales. One of them is, I think it's CAT
I mean, I'm
scales.
okay to find the scales. The
Right.
question, like, if I'm estimating, like, I can convert pounds to or cubic feet to pounds approximately.
But
But
right, but basically, look, you're any moving company, especially starting out. So Google Calendar, that's all good and great, but Google Calendar is not going to let you manage your customers, especially if your goal is to eventually get to be a big company, right? So you want to move in CRM. You have no option. Moving CRM is something that you need to have, right? So you can look there's a whole world of them today. So you got Granite, which is among the oldest of the CRMs, and that's also the CRM that's being used by brokers all the time. So pretty much majority of brokers use Granite. So for them, it's going to be easier if if you're working with a broker, right? But you got Granite, that would be one of the CRMs. It's old. It has its own uh, things that may not necessarily make it easier to work with, but that's one of the older CRMs that are available. You have Moveboard or Alarmco. That's another CRM that's out there. It's based on open source. There's another one, Smart Moving, that's among the more popular ones today. That's also based on open source. So if you're familiar with Alarmco and you get into Smart Moving, you're going to find some familiarity. There's some things that are going to be similar. Smart Moving is probably more of the modern ones today. It has a lot of integration. It has integration with Ring Central. It has integration with like MailChimp, and then there's a bunch of others out there as well. So there's quite a few of those things that are happening that are out there. Um, what else? There
but
is
returning,
also
yeah, returning to the question of estimating long moves, is there like a formula with which?
I'm getting to that point. There's a reason I'm going about the CRM. So CRMs, when you're taking an inventory from the customer and you're putting it into CRM, it already has items that are in that system that are listed in cubic feet and pounds. So once you put those items in, once you get an inventory from the customer, it's going to tell you how many pounds or how many cubic feet. Now, of course, I always recommend using larger boxes, using larger pieces when you're estimating for the purpose of, if you overestimate a little bit, there's less of a chance that you're going to be under quoting somebody, right? So that's one of
Got
the
it.
things. As far as, so yeah, so once you have pounds, I mean, there's probably an accepted rate across the country or what you're going to price in terms of shipping. As far as carriers go, like if you're using carriers and you're not doing the shipment yourself. So the irony is this, and I've talked to many companies about this, but there's a huge international network that's happening in terms of carriers and shippers. Israeli companies have this, Russian, Ukrainian, international companies that have international ownership that are in US have this. Some US companies that are, American owners that are American born, let's put it that way, have this as well, right? But there's a much larger network that's like international because there's a lot of carriers that are owners operators that are running all over the country that are taking shipments. They're picking up loads, they're dropping off loads, they're taking transportation loads when they're on the way back. So if you're working with those carriers, you're going to have one price. If you're trying to do this yourself, you're going to have something different. There's also an option of working with transportation companies. Transportation companies, they will bring a truck to your door. You will load them, and then you would have to hire help on the other end to unload it. So that's another option to do long distance. So, and all of that would
Got it.
depend, like pricing would depend on how you want to price your stuff. It would depend on things. Like, for example, East Coast, most companies are probably somewhere between, for carriers, for most of them, pricing is probably somewhere between $1.25 per cube to maybe $1.75, maybe $2 if you're going to somewhere like Maine or like New Hampshire, somewhere where there's not as, or maybe like if you're going to Florida Keys, that would be a different price as well. If you're going all
Okay.
the way to California, you're probably somewhere in the 325 to 375 range. And then a 350 to 4 probably if you're going to like Oregon and Washington State, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, those states that you very rarely get things to. And then if you're going somewhere like Brownsville, Texas, that's right on the border with Mexico, you're probably also going to have higher rates than other parts of Texas.
So basically, for a long distance move, you quoting big companies how much gonna cost you to move 1,000 pounds of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you either load it up to your truck here and then shuttle it to the transportation company, or they arrive at the house origin at the origin
Mm-hmm.
and they move stuff to destination and
So
you hire labor to unload them, right?
right. So
Or
now
you give to
some transportation companies will have additional costs that you could pay them for them to have the labor too. But what I'm
Mhm.
saying is that all those costs are part of doing a long distance business. So that's the reason I brought that up is that those things, how you choose to transport it, will have effect on how you're going to charge your customers
All
because
right.
Got
those are
it.
your expenses. So of those expenses, what you pay either the carrier or a
Mhm.
transportation company, right? You got to take those into account when you price it. Then you got to take account, okay, what does labor cost you? What does packing cost you?
Mhm.
Right? And then you want to put obviously on top whatever it is that you want to make.
All right, based on your experience, do you think it's worth going long distance for the company that operates only like us only first year?
If you've built a good base with your online profile, why not? But you got
Mhm.
to build it first. Like
Mhm.
it
Got
doesn't,
it.
don't waste okay, so leads today, which is getting to that part too, when you guys started with that. So leads today, they're not, I mean, they're not the quality that they used to be. I can tell you right now, before we leads were worse in the wintertime, they were better in the summer. This past summer, lead quality stayed the same. So you're getting, when you're buying leads, unless they're exclusive, unless you're only maybe sharing those leads potentially with one other mover. Let's say the lead provider says, we only send leads to two companies. So you and somebody else, for example, right? Or you're the only one that's getting them. Unless you're getting these leads that are exclusive to you, if most of these lead providers, moving.com, Equate, Billy, Quote Runner, whatever, it's probably going out to five companies easy, if not more, right? So you're competing with all these companies.
So
So
can you tell us like what would offer like one, two companies only?
you'd
Or
have to
like,
contact them directly. Like, I mean, the
okay,
problem is part of the problem is this. Lead providers always want to make their money. Okay. Because of that, there's a lot of like 30 to 40% of all leads that you're buying right now are going to be junk. Some companies, I honestly, I don't know where they get their leads because I get uh, comments from the customer saying, I don't know where you got my information. I've never filled anything out. I'm not looking to move at all. So you get
got it.
that too. So it's kind of, in a lot of cases, it's pick and choose because leads that you guys may get in Boston from one lead provider may be great in Boston, but may be horrible in Los Angeles. So it's also,
Got
unfortunately,
it.
you just gotta test the waters.
Question then, so for new company, will you recommend use lead provider or broker?
Unfortunately, for a new company, you don't have much of a choice when it comes to lead providers because in your market, if you're brand new, nobody other than some of the people that you worked with or some of the companies you might have worked for, nobody else knows who you are. So,
So they won't take us, lead providers. They won't.
no, lead providers will. I'm talking about the consumers.